Okay, thank you, James. Thanks for that introduction. And hello, everyone. My name is Richard Garsthagen. I am one of the technical cloud experts at Oracle. And today I am joined also with Steve Ducker from VMware. And he is their technical alliance manager responsible for the relationship with Oracle. Welcome, Steve.
Thanks, Richard.
If I may ask, as the first question, right? What was VMware's thinking strategy around trying to make sure that VMware, besides running on-premise in people's own data centers, but also now making sure that people can run VMware in the public cloud? What's the main motivation that VMware is doing this?
Oh, wow, let's start with a big question. That's a really good question, and I think it comes back to about 5 years ago. We articulated a vision of any device accessing any application from any cloud. And we've been pretty consistent to that vision ever since. Of course, it's evolved over time. We called out intrinsic security across the original layers, and only a week ago, we announced VMware's Anywhere workspace to provide visibility and management to help companies deliver better and more secure experiences to their workforces, no matter where they are. Now, some VMware products and services worked more naturally across multiple platforms, and the customers could take advantage of them across their own hybrid cloud environments. And for some time now, VMware partners have been offering vSphere-based cloud environments, but some of our largest partners developed their own. But for many customers, the task of relocating complex applications and services to native cloud platforms was impractical, which also meant that taking advantages of the benefits of a cloud infrastructure was also out of reach. So introducing VMware-powered cloud services alongside their own native cloud services enabled customers of those largest partners to take advantage of both, and filled out one of the last pieces of our Any vision. And although I guess I'm almost a year late, I should take this opportunity to welcome Oracle as one of those partners. Perhaps you could tell us how Oracle is running VMware services inside of Oracle Cloud.
Yeah. Well, we're very happy to join that pact of public cloud vendors that offer VMware in the public cloud. And we are using our very powerful bare metal servers, as we call them, to run VMware. These are Intel processor machines. Each server has 52 cores, 768 gigabytes of RAM, and each server even has 51 terabyte of local NVMe storage, which can be used for vSAN for the storage for the virtual machine. So a very powerful environment that allows people to run VMware in the Oracle public cloud.
They are powerful indeed. And can you explain how customers get the VMware software-defined data center stack onto them?
Yeah, this is, of course, it's public cloud, so it is, of course, automated. You don't have to create your own server and install ESXi. It literally is a service within the Oracle public cloud, the Oracle Cloud VMware solution. So people can go to that menu item, create an SDDC, and fully automatically, we will create the bare metal servers, install ESXi on those servers, configure vSAN, install vCenter, configure NSXT, deploy the HCX appliance. And roughly about 3 hours later, you have a fully up and running VMware estate ready to run your own virtual machines. So during the provisioning, you just provide your own SSH keys, and that will then later on give you access to that environment. So at the end of that process, we hand over the keys to the system so the customer can actually use this.
That's great. But what do you mean exactly by hand the keys over to the customer?
Yeah, so this is really one of the unique ways in how we, as a public cloud provider, provide a VMware environment in the public cloud. We do this truly as the customer's own environment. And when we hand over the keys, it means that the customer is in full control of the system itself after this provisioning. We as Oracle don't need to have access to this platform. We as Oracle don't have any software running on this. It is really the customer's own environment where they have full control over the whole entire stack, from the ESXi server to NSX to vCenter. It is the customer's own environment, and we're out of the picture.
So if I get this right, customers get full control and Oracle don't have any access to the solution afterwards. How do you make that possible?
Yeah, that's really because of how the Oracle Cloud in general is architected very differently than other public clouds. When we designed what we call our second generation cloud, it does not have any dependency on server virtualization itself to deliver any of our services, including the OCVS service. Our control plane for us to manage our cloud, to manage which resources our customers have access to and what can talk to each other, is a process that never happens on the same physical service where our customers run their workloads. We use what we call an off-box virtualization technology, meaning in the network sits our control plane where we can manage which users have which access. And that is the same applicable to our VMware offering in our cloud. It means we can provide bare metal servers where the customer runs their VMware stack, but we don't need to have access to it because our control plane does not need to sit on those same VMware servers. Our control plane sits in the network. That's where we can control everything. And because of that, we can truly provide the customer their own virtualization stack. And in this case, it can be VMware, but we do also support Hyper-V, KVM, OVM, any kind of other virtualization stack. And the customer has truly fully access to that environment. And most importantly, we as Oracle don't. So the customer is in full control of security, compliance, and they are the only ones that can really see the data, manage the virtual machines, and have that environment for them to use.
And I guess that same off-box virtualization provides security and separation between customers.
Yeah, it does. It takes care of the isolation between customers, but even for services within a single customer itself. Even if the virtual machines on top of the VMware environment need to talk to any of the native services within the Oracle Cloud, all of that is managed by that off-box virtualization control plane where we manage all the resources for our cloud. So after all of this is provisioned, customers then can, of course, run their own workloads. And of course, fantastically, VMware has made some excellent products to help people move those workloads. And one of the things in the public cloud, of course, comes with the solution is VMware HCX, technology to migrate virtual machines. Can you maybe explain a little bit to our audience, Steve, what that HCX technology is all about?
I can. So HCX, or Hybrid Cloud Extension, is a product we've been using for a number of years now to migrate workloads between vSphere and other environments. Hybrid Cloud Extension is deployed into the Oracle Cloud VMware solution and to a customer's on-premise environment. And it performs two separate roles. One of them is moving of workloads between environments. And the second is to extend networks between them, because it's not always practical to move an entire set of workload and components at the same time. For migration, HCX has two ways of doing this. For very large scale migrations, we can do what we call bulk migration. And what this involves is the data being replicated between the source and the target environment over a period of time. At the end of that migration, which can be dependent upon the bandwidth available or the time necessary to take the workloads across. And at the end of that process, what we can then do is what we call a reboot to cloud. This involves HCX coordinating the shutdown of those virtual machines in their source environment, a final sync of any missing data that's been updated since the replicas were made, and then the virtual machine being restarted in its new target environment. And that's great, of course, where you can stop services for a while, perhaps over a weekend or over an evening or a night shutdown period. But for services where we can't, there is an alternative. And HCX allows us to use vMotion between the source and the target environments. More cleverly, it allows us to manage vMotion between environments running quite different versions of vSphere. When this is the case, we migrate the traffic in the same way that a local vMotion would happen. And when the migration is complete, we then switch over the running virtual machine seamlessly from the source environment to the target without anybody noticing anything's happened.
That still, to me, is magic. Moving a virtual machine from, especially on-premise, into a cloud, I think it can be done reverse as well, right?
Yeah,
without any form of downtime. That's truly incredible.
I remember the first time I put that on a PowerPoint slide about 2009, when I was talking about this new vSphere stuff in the service provider I worked at. And everybody went, what? Yeah. Imagine moving a server from one rack to another without anybody noticing.
I still remember my first vMotion a long time ago.
So while HX is great, I understand that a lot of our customers already have their own chosen technologies for backups and, more importantly, migrations. Is it possible for customers to use those tools within OCVS?
Yeah, so as it is an environment that is fully under the customer's own control, they can install, they have root level ESXi access, so they can install any plugin that requires those kinds of access. So a Veeam, a Zerto, or whatever other third-party product that's out there. They have full access to the APIs, of course, of vCenter. So whatever mechanism customers are familiar with or what other technologies people already have invested in, they can actually be used using with the Oracle Cloud VMware solution. So great technologies to migrate workloads with HCX and some of the other external products that are out there. What do you see what the main motivation is for customers to use a VMware environment in the public cloud?
That's a great question. And I think that a lot of these will come as no surprise. We see a number of customers who, for one reason or another, need to exit the platform that the solutions are currently running on. This can be the end of life of a particular hardware. It can sometimes be a desire to not just move off of the hardware, to move out of the location itself. So this can be exiting maybe a homegrown data center in an office building, which is running out of capacity. It can be to move out of a co-located data center environment, or it can just be to get out of the hardware management space altogether and have somebody look after that part of an environment. I guess we also see customers who don't need to leave, but do need to grow and don't have the room to do that. This can be a permanent growth environment. It can also be temporary or seasonal, where we see customers extending their on-premise solutions into public cloud partner spaces. And of course, disaster recovery is always a big talking point. Having an environment which you can move into should the need arise and grow as you need is also really important for a number of our customers. But more recently, as some of our largest partners have started to offer unique services within their own native cloud, we've also seen a growing number of customers looking to relocate their on-premises workloads to be near specific services that they can get from public cloud environments. And while many of these moves are very strategic and take planning and a staged execution, we also see customers who have a very short-term or very immediate need for capacity growth. So is it possible for Oracle Cloud VMware Solution customers to rapidly grow or shrink the size of the environment they have in the cloud?
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest fundamentals of a public cloud, that it is easy to use, elastic, very easily provisioned. So the provisioning itself is automatic. It takes about 3 hours to get a full SDDC deployed. It takes about 30 minutes to add additional hosts and removing additional hosts. So it is an environment that customers can use very flexible. We have different commercial models in offering the service. So we have an hourly rate model where you can just, without any form of commit, create the environment and have it just for a day, for 8 hours or something like that, or for just a few days. And we do have a monthly, a year, and a 3-year commit model where we provide better discounting. But then, of course, the environment becomes a little bit more fixed in time for the customer consume. But yeah, so customers can absolutely very flexibly, for that extension scenario that you talk about, quickly create a VMware environment in the cloud, extend their environment, move some of the VMs over, or create new VMs on that. And if they don't need it anymore, they can terminate it, and there's no cost to it anymore. There's no cost from, of course, the bare metal servers, but there's also no more cost to the VMware licenses that are running on top of that environment, because all of that is part of that package deal, and all of that becomes, therefore, a very flexible, easy-to-use resource.
That's great. So I know that Oracle has many cloud regions around the world. How can people find out which ones of those Oracle Cloud regions also have Oracle Cloud VMware Solution? Yeah,
today we have 29 regions around the globe, and that number is growing. So we have plans for even more regions. And because OCVS is just part of our normal architecture, it means it is available in every single of those regions. So across all those 29 regions that we have, besides creating any of our native services, you can also spin up an Oracle Cloud VMware solution. One other really nice side effect of that is that we as Oracle have a single rate card as well. And that means that the price for our service is identical, the same across the globe. So we don't have complicated price lists depending on if something sits in North America or in Europe or in Asia. The price that I think is extremely competitive that Oracle offers is available and is always the same, no matter where you deploy this, in what region that we have.
I guess that many of the customers that we share will be interested to know if they could perhaps run their Oracle workloads inside Oracle Cloud VMware solution.
Yeah, as part of the partnership that we made together as two companies, it's not that we just offer VMware in our cloud, but that we also support VMware as a platform. That means that Oracle workloads are now fully supported on top of a VMware platform, and it could be in our cloud, but it could also be for the customer, of course, on-premise. Now, we do, of course, in our cloud also have lots of native services. So if a customer today is maybe running an Oracle database on top of their VMware estate, and they would like to move that into the public cloud, they can choose to just move the virtual machine over, or they can choose to use and adopt one of our native database cloud services or an autonomous database. One core scenario that we see a lot is that customers on-premise in their own data centers are standardized for their applications on top of a VMware platform. They run all their applications on top of VMware, and they have consolidated, for instance, their Oracle databases on top of an Exadata. The nice thing is in the Oracle Cloud is that both platforms are fully available there as well. So you can really move your applications from VMware to VMware in our cloud using the Oracle Cloud VMware solution. And you can move your Exadata that you have on-premise to our Exadata cloud service, which is a normal Exadata again, but it sits in our cloud, and move those databases over as well. And that gives for our customers a very easy migration path for both the database layer and both the application layer to move their workloads across. Besides that, of course, in the Oracle Cloud, we have lots of other new services like web application firewalls and load balancers. And all of these services can be used in front of your workloads that you run on top of the Oracle Cloud VMware solution as well. So you can really also mix the Oracle Cloud native services with any of your existing workloads that you're moving over to the VMware platform.
In our public cloud VMware offerings, we use NSXT as the network overlay layer within the SDDCs. This allows customers to quickly define and deploy networks and network services independent of the network topology underneath them. And it allows them to do that whilst using tools and interfaces they're already familiar with. I guess some of our customers are going to be less familiar with networking Oracle Cloud. So could you perhaps explain how its networking integrates with those in OCVS?
Yeah, so like in most public clouds, you can define your own virtual cloud network. That's what we call it, at least in Oracle Cloud, a VCN. And within that VCN, you can deploy your Oracle Cloud native services. Now, the NSXT network segment, of course, is an overlay network that runs on top of the VMware stack. But we can very easily connect those two worlds up together. So we have automatic wizards in the Oracle Cloud that allows you to say, okay, I have a particular NSX T network segment running on top of VMware, and I would like to allow it to connect to some of the native OCI services, to maybe some native compute VMs, or to a native database cloud service. And using those wizards, we will automatically set up for you the correct routing rules, security rules, etc., so that those two worlds can very easily connect to each other. In the end, the Oracle Cloud VMware solution, your VMware platform, and any of our native OCI services, native Oracle Cloud services, all run inside the same single customer tenancy, is fully under control of the customer, and therefore also fully under control of the networking side, what can talk to who, and how all that is configured. And the customer has full control and access over doing that.
That's great. So does Oracle already have existing customers using OCVS that you can tell us about?
Yes, as part of this webinar, we actually have a video of Altair that actually is using the Oracle Cloud VMware solution that will talk about what their experiences are with this offering. So thank you, Steve, very much for this short chat and this introduction to the Oracle Cloud VMware solution. I'm really happy that we have this partnership together. And I also do a short demonstration of the Oracle Cloud VMware solution.